thanks for agreeing for me to interview you today. I hear you have some news about the libraries. So tell me a little bit about it.
I do. Well, we just moved our elementary school. Falmouth Elementary just came into its brand new renovated school, a K-5 school with a beautiful new library facility and upgraded heating and air conditioning, new windows, new doorways, projectors in every classroom. We are ecstatic.
And how did this come about?
Well, we knew we had 5 older sister schools in Stafford. I have 17 elementary schools, and 5 of the sister schools were in need of renovation. So we put a plan in the capital improvement plan. It had been there forever, and we were up to time when it was time to look at those 5 schools, and Falmouth was our first school on the slate. So we worked with architects and did our design scheme and took it to the school board and got approval, and we started that a year ago. We moved Falmouth out a year ago over to Stafford Middle. Did our renovations in 1 year, which is incredible to get that amount of work done in a full calendar year. And we're back and getting ready for sister school number 2 to start their renovations.
That is really exciting. Now, how has it worked? Because I'm assuming with the future schools, there's going to have to be some teaming up as well. How does that work, having kind of 2 schools together while a renovation's going on?
Well, it's interesting. We had so much pushback about moving K through 5 students into a middle school. Parents were concerned about children mixing, parents were concerned about the longer bus ride, and legitimately so. They were worried about how this was all going to work. Luckily, we really spent a lot of time thinking at the school board office, and we knew that Stafford Middle was an ideal location. At one time, that school had 1,400 children. Right now, it only has 600 middle school children. Ample space, 2 gymnasiums, all the things that we knew that we needed, 3 cafeteria lines. We knew we could make it work. So we essentially put the elementary school on the first floor, moved our middle schoolers to the second floor, and we share a few common spaces like the library, the cafeteria, but everything else is separate. We have separate nurse's office, separate guidance. We share a main office as well.
Wow, that sounds like that works pretty well. So now that you've finished 1, are there going to be any changes? Have you learned anything in the process, and you'll kind of do things a little differently as number 2 comes up?
With number 2 with construction, or number 2 with a move to the middle school?
Both.
Okay. Well, we know Stafford Elementary is a bigger elementary school, so we have had to make some concessions because our space hasn't gotten any bigger at Stafford Middle. So Falmouth had 470 students. Stafford Middle has 600 elementary students. And those little bodies take up space, so we've had to make some concessions. Our principal and assistant principal are sharing an office, which it was their preference. They wanted a conference room. They felt that that was a greater need. But those are the main concessions that we've had to make. We feel very comfortable, and they're literally a half a mile down the road from another, so that the bus ride is not a big deal. In terms of lessons learned with construction, you always see things after you've built that brand new house that I wish I had done this, or I wish I had changed that. So we are seeing some things. The architect is very busy, so we're letting him know the few changes that we need to make. Of course, every change costs more money. So we have to be very deliberate about the changes that we do make. But there are some things. I wish that pieces of the library shelving were lower to give more visibility at certain places. I wish we had changed the construction of the computer lab to allow for more children to sit and be instructed directly before going to computers. Those are pretty important changes that I think we'll make in the next renovation. It's who's to say what we'll discover next year and change for Grafton Village. There's more down the road, I'm sure.
Right, right. Well, I've heard that the construction company that the county hired has just recently been indicted for some faulty practices, construction practices. So, I've heard from some parents who have said they don't want their children to be in this renovated facility while this is still under question. What do you think is going to happen?
Well, I'm not really concerned about that. That was actually a small subcontractor that the concern was with. Our general contractor was free from any of those complaints. But I'm glad you brought that up because it's something important message we need to get out to our community. We have brought in our own engineers, our own specialists, a few specialists in terms of electricity to come in and double check everything that was been done. So while those problems were on the business end of that company, we believe that their craftsmanship is perfectly safe. We are not putting any children in that building until we're 100% certain. So we're relieved that our contractor has worked with us and brought in the experts that we need. And he's actually paying for all that. None of that's going to the county.
Wow, that's great.
I know. He feels responsible for it, so good for him.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So school number 2 will be next year. So are you hoping then within like a total 5-year span that all 5 schools will be completed? Is that the plan?
That's the plan. plan. I'm almost schizophrenic right now because I'm doing school 3. So as we're moving school 1, I'm already thinking about school 3. That school is a little bit different in its construction, so it's a brand new library. We're starting from scratch with a new architect. Very exciting to get to be there from the get-go with that piece. But I'm hopeful, I'm optimistic. I don't like to think that the schools that are waiting and being patient are not going to get their turn. And I think our school board is going to support us in that. We promised the 5 sister schools, and we're going to do everything we can to advocate for those buildings and for those children.
That's wonderful. So even with the economy the way it is, that there's money set aside for this to be done.
We have planned and made concessions. We've let pieces of the project go. We had to let the geothermal heating and cooling go to save money. So that was almost $1 million in savings. So we see the difficult choices that we made helping the other schools down the road. So we couldn't do everything, but we did the best we could.
And if the general public wants to see any pictures of this new, or any on the county's website?
All the pictures are all on the website. We're having a big open house for the entire community. It's going to be invited to come tour the building and see it. It's a Stafford L and Falmouth are community schools. They're schools that sit right in the middle of a development, so it's everyone's school is how we feel about it. So we're inviting all members of the community, former alumni, to come back and see the exciting things that happened. That was the one piece of the community didn't want to let Falmouth go. One option was to raise that school and build a 950 elementary school. And the community spoke back and said, no, this is our school, so we want them to come back and see their school with a whole brand new, fresh face that it has.
Well, that is just wonderful. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for visiting with me.